So you want to make your parents proud, you want to make some serious cash, and most importantly, you want to be a hot item on the marriage market. So what do? Naturally, you become a doctor. In this video, I'm going to examine the true cost of pursuing a career in medicine in the United States so that you can make an educated decision regarding whether this path is worth it for you or not. Assalamu alaikum, my name is Gluschenko and welcome to Practical Islamic Finance. If you need funding that you can use for virtually anything, go to fundmebff.com. We offer interest-free halal funding that is based on your income. You commit a fixed percentage of your income for a fixed period of time, and in return you get the cash you need to do anything from paying off your credit cards to buying a car to putting the down payment on a house. And the beauty is your repayments are designed to stay affordable because they aren't a fixed dollar amount, they're just a fixed percentage of your income for a fixed period of time. Your obligations will never change, they won't increase with time. As I mentioned, there's no interest in our funding. So check us out at fundmebff.com. Alternatively, if you earn more than $200,000 annually and you're looking for a halal investment to make to diversify your investment portfolio with an investment that has very little correlation with the stock market and has averaged returns in the mid-teens since we started offering these investments in the beginning of 2017, then reach out using the link in the description below. So what does it cost to become a doctor? Well, the obvious cost to becoming a doctor is the tuition that medical schools will charge. But there are other hidden costs that I think it's important to be aware of. One of the largest of these hidden costs is the income that you could have been earning had you not been pursuing a career in medicine. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, on average, someone with a 4-year bachelor's degree in the United States can expect to earn $60,000 annually. That's the average. So if you're attending 4 years of medical school, you are foregoing 60,000 times 4 or $240,000 in income that you could have been earning had you been working during your time in medical school. This is of course assuming that medical school students would earn the average if they were doing something else. Now, medical students tend to be amongst the best and brightest and most motivated students, so it's reasonable to expect that they would actually earn more than the average, but just so our estimates are on the conservative side of things, let's assume that they only earn the average. The median medical school debt load for medical school graduates in 2018 was around $200,000. Now, this is not including any debt that they had incurred in their undergraduate studies. After medical school, there is residency, and the minimum number of years in residency is 3 years. Many students, because their pay during residency is rather low, they put their loans in deferment during this time. Now, if we assumed an average interest rate of around 7% during a student's residency, and that student had the average debt amount of $200,000, then we're looking at an additional $40,000 to $45,000 in interest that is going to accrue and be added to their debt balance during the 3 years in residency. And this is of course assuming that they only did the minimum 3 years of residency. So coming out of residency, it is reasonable to expect that the average individual is going to have around $245,000 in debt that they have incurred during the past 7 years. Now, when you add this to the $240,000 of income that they could have earned during their 4 years in medical school, you're looking at a total of $485,000 in debt and foregone income that the medical school graduate has incurred. In addition to this, during these 7 years, that is 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency, you can expect between working and training and studying the medical student to be averaging around 60 hours a week, probably more, especially when you take into account the long hours of work during residency. Residents will work up to 80 hours a week during their residency. So during these 7 years, at a rate of 60 hours of work per week, if you compare this with someone who is only working 40 hours a week, the medical student in 7 years will put in the same number of hours that the 40-hour-a-week worker will put in 11 years. So there's an additional 4 years of work that the medical student is working that they could have been compensated on. And if we assume that they were compensated at an average rate of $60,000 a year, that's an additional $240,000 in income that they could have earned had they been earning the average hourly wage doing something else instead of pursuing a career in medicine. So now when you add the $240,000 to the $485,000 total we calculated earlier, you're looking at $725,000 in total debt and income that could have been earned working with just the 4-year bachelor degree. Put differently, coming out of residency, the average doctor is $725,000 behind where they could have been if they had decided to work with their bachelor's degree as opposed to pursuing a career in medicine. And again, this number is probably rather conservative considering that medical students tend to be amongst the best and brightest and most motivated, and therefore are likely to earn more than the average annual salary had they been doing something else. Now you may be wondering, okay, they may be $725,000 behind where they could have been, but now that they're going to start earning doctor money, they'll quickly catch up. So let's examine how long it would take for a physician coming out of residency to catch up with where they could have been if they just worked with their 4-year bachelor's degree. Obviously, the answer to this question is going to change based on the specialty of the doctor. So let's examine the case of a primary care physician. According to a 2018 report, the average annual salary for a primary care physician was around $240,000. So let's assume that the primary care physician coming out of residency decides to live like a bachelor degree holding worker would live on $60,000 annually. So this means that they would be able to save or put towards paying off their debt an average of $240,000 of income that they're earning minus the $60,000 that they're living off of, so $180,000. So to get to the $725,000 number, they would need at least 4 years. Now, if you take into account taxes and the fact that their debt is going to be incurring interest during this time, the actual number of years that the doctor would have to live on only $60,000 is likely more than 4 years. So based on this, it's reasonable to expect that a doctor will not make up for the total cost of their 7 years of education and residency before they're 40. Now, as we mentioned, this calculation changes based on the different specializations and where the doctor works and many other factors. It's worth noting here that in everything we've said, we've only focused on the financial burden of pursuing a career in medicine. We haven't talked about the stress of carrying a large debt balance year after year, in addition to the stressful nature of a doctor's work. According to a recent report, 90% of doctors reported being either moderately stressed, severely stressed, or completely burnt out on a daily basis. Now, don't get me wrong. You'd be hard-pressed to find a profession that is more noble than that of a doctor. The generous Quran in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 32 says, "Whosoever saves one soul, it is as if they have saved all of humanity." There are very few professions out there that give you the opportunity to save all of humanity as part of your day job. The reason I mentioned what I have in this video is so that you understand that while the upside of being a doctor is substantial and real, it does come at a cost, like all good things in life, financially and physically and in many other ways. So now the question you have to ask yourself is whether a medical degree is worth it for you. And if you want my 2 cents, I would say that if you are genuinely passionate about medicine, then it is absolutely worth it. As I mentioned, you'd be hard-pressed to find anything more noble than being a doctor and being able to help people with their health. So if you think you can be a great doctor and you think that you can leave your mark on the profession, then it is absolutely worth it. However, if your motivation is simply for money and prestige, then yes, you may achieve these things being a doctor. However, it does come at a high cost, and you should be aware of this high cost. And I know most of the viewers of this channel are Muslim, and in the Muslim community, being a doctor is highly revered, and that's why I wanted to make this video. So people really gave the matter a lot of thought before they chose for themselves the profession, or before they pressured their children or encouraged them to get into this profession. As I mentioned, being a doctor is a really noble thing, and you can hardly think of anything more honorable. However, it's not for everyone. So make sure it's for you before you decide to go in this path. Now, if you already are a doctor, then congratulations. You should feel really proud of yourself. What you did is remarkable. You've finished and accomplished something that very few people can accomplish. And oftentimes you're going to be in a position where you can save the entirety of humanity. That's a very privileged position to be in. Now, one of the things that you can do if you would like to rid yourself from interest and dealing with interest because it's prohibited in Islam, or you'd simply like to reduce the financial burden of carrying massive amounts of loans with you year after year, is to look at Fund Me BFF and see what financing we may be able to provide for you. The reason why it's likely to reduce the financial stress that you're experiencing is because the obligations are fixed, they don't increase with time, and they're not fixed payments that you have to make. They're based on your level of income. So if you earn less, then you pay less. So you have no pressure to work a number of hours beyond what makes you optimally happy. You can choose the workload that optimizes your level of happiness and not worry about the interest clock that is taking on you all the time, because as I mentioned, your payments are a fixed percentage of your income, whatever it is that you earn. It also helps you reduce your stress because, God forbid, if something were to happen to you, the burden of these loans is transferred to your family. Whereas with Fund Me BFF, we make an investment in a person, and if that person were to, God forbid, die or become disabled, their obligations would end immediately. So your family would be protected financially from something, God forbid, happening to you. So it's definitely something to consider. If you have any questions, make sure to reach out to us. We have a phone number on our website. You can also shoot us an email. I'll leave my personal email in the description below. I hope you found this video beneficial and thought-provoking. Until next time, take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.